Now, if you don't know anything about World of Darkness, then don't worry, because up until about a year ago, I didn't know much about it either, or at least I wasn't actively aware of its existence. However, I did know about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, the video game adaptation of a tabletop RPG created by White Wolf Publishing. It introduced the old World of Darkness setting, which just so happens to be one of the most popular tabletop games in the world, so I apologize in advance for any mistakes due to ignorance and this brief history lesson I have for the newcomers. As you can guess from the name, World of Darkness is, well, dark, mixing together goth punk along with supernatural fantasy and science fiction, mainly focusing on vampires, werewolves, mages, and humans, but there's also wraiths and various other creatures, as you can imagine. If you're really looking to get a feel for the setting without actually playing, then I suggest watching the 2003 film Underworld, because apparently it bared a close enough resemblance to World of Darkness that it warranted a lawsuit. White Wolf started as a magazine company offering short stories and reviews of various tabletop games along with interviews and news from the artists and developers. There was a certain aesthetic White Wolf was going for as displayed by their slew of cover arts, all of which had this aura of danger or seclusion. In 1991, there was a merger between White Wolf and Lion Rampant, the creators of Ars Magica, which spawned what you now know as White Wolf Publishing. This allowed them to release the previously mentioned Vampire the Masquerade. Even though White Wolf would continue to make magazines, they also started to fledge out this new universe, releasing Werewolf the Apocalypse in 1992 and Mage the Ascension in 1993. All of them used what's called the storyteller system, which is a way of playing tabletop RPGs that White Wolf created themselves. It involved 9 attributes and only used 10-sided die, where generally rolling a 6 or higher would result in a success. Their next project would be a Street Fighter RPG that came out around the same time as the Street Fighter movie. This game would use some of the basic mechanics as seen in their earlier titles. After that anomaly, White Wolf continued to expand the World of Darkness setting, publishing a major release every year from 1996 all the way to 2003. This led directly into the company starting a Chronicles of Darkness that utilized an altered storytelling system and separated the World of Darkness into 2 separate categories, old and new. This allowed the company to release Vampire the Requiem, Werewolf the Forsaken, and Mage the Awakening over the next few years, essentially rebuilding on top of their original IPs. Finally, this takes us to 2006, where White Wolf Publishing was acquired by CCP Games. These are the people behind Eve, a space-themed MMO which has poached more whales than Captain Ahab. CCP Games would announce this merger, stating that White Wolf was a wholly owned subsidiary and how both companies have led the industry in both online and offline gaming products. This led people to make a safe assumption that there was eventually going to be a World of Darkness MMO. And there it is. It only took me about 550 words to actually talk about the subject presented in the title, so feel free to subscribe for more long-winded, drawn-out introductions. Although there were whispers and theories spreading on when World of Darkness Online would come out, there was no conclusive evidence to be found anytime soon. Instead, CCP would continue to work on EVE Online, while White Wolf published Prometheon the Created, the first of many books that added extra layers to the new World of Darkness universe. However, in 2007, White Wolf would get to work on an EVE-based card game, and a wave of new CCP developers would set up shop in White Wolf's Georgia location. Things stay quiet for a bit while both companies work on their respective products, but rumors and speculation continued regarding World of Darkness Online. People knew the game was being worked on, but were anxiously waiting something that could turn this idea into a reality. The concrete evidence wouldn't come until 2009 with an official confirmation on their website, and then 2010 would bring us the first trailer and announcement at the Grand Masquerade convention. While this cinematic did ensure the public that World of Darkness Online was in fact being worked on, it didn't really answer any questions on what the game would actually look like, or how it would play for that matter. It seemed to be heavily focused on the vampire faction, undoubtedly from the success of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. The next bit of information can be found in a video CCP Games put up showing off its carbon character technology that apparently allowed hair to move better. The characters in the video appeared to be models for the World of Darkness MMO, one sporting an all-black outfit that could only be described as a fancy goth dress, while the other seems to be wearing Blood Rain's nightgown. So progress is being made, things are going smoothly, and an actual game is starting to materialize. But unfortunately, this is also the start of some controversy on the inside. Eventually, an article in The Guardian would reveal that around 2010 is when infighting became a major issue for the company. There was supposedly a lack of direction in the design department and a severe budget mismanagement, but anyone who's worked at a job knows that shit rolls downhill, so the lower caste in the office took the brunt of the damage. Reportedly, it was stated in an email that developers would have to work weekends and mandatory overtime due to their poor planning. There was also something they called the sweaty room, where lead designers would get into shouting matches. In September of 2010, a large amount of information would surface in a blog post elegantly titled "Why Your Gripes with the World of Darkness MMO Are Stupid." While intended to counterpoint the community's objections, this also compiled what has been made public about the game so far, such as the game not being centered around combat, instead focusing on social gameplay, but would also offer PvP. Then 2011 hits. The company states its plan to double its team that would work on World of Darkness Online. But as some of you might know, there is an absolute catastrophe waiting just around the corner. June 21st, 2011, the excessively hyped Incarna update is released. This introduced microtransactions to EVE Online, and the community had a fucking conniption. A patch that was supposed to highlight the new turret system and make the first few hours of the game more accessible to new players was widely considered to be nothing more than a shameless display of corporate greed. After the inclusion of a $70 monocle in an article comparing overpriced in-game items to $1,000 designer jeans, the backlash from this update became a force too powerful to control. This led to CCP issuing a public statement basically saying that they bit off more than they can chew, seeing as how they were working on EVE, World of Darkness, and their new first-person shooter Dust 514 all at the same time. The boycotts and outcry successfully taught CCP a lesson, forcing them to lay off 20% of its staff, the majority of which came from its North American region. So while the anger was warranted, and the community was heard, CCP felt the only way to stay alive was to siphon out what little resources they could from the World of Darkness development team, which is essentially the corporate version of a vampire feasting on their mortal friend for nourishment. Fast forward to 2012 and the public is left with little more than a notification that World of Darkness Online was being delayed until further notice. There was also another cinematic trailer, which was just a slow pan down a dark city street showing a few buildings. When watching the EVE Fan Fest for this year, the roadmap for development included things like building an office and creating developer tools. There was also a manual for the game that was made for its playtesters, but they blurted out, which infuriates me to no end. So if you can find out what this manual says, then I will personally give you one virtual hug. An interview stated that there were around 60 people working on the game at this time. At EVE Fan Fest 2013, there was a lengthy World of Darkness segment going over where the development was and what systems were being implemented. They were still working on AI interactions, but also working on a quote-unquote out-of-client interaction engagement. They were working on lighting and had a small art team, but they wanted vanity to be a major focus. There was apparently extensive playtesting in the company, but instead of showing the gameplay footage, they make a video about the coding tools they used to make the game. What started out as a talk about the long-anticipated MMO quickly turned to a showcase of different shaders, which ended in a short but impactful confession that Dust 514 was CCP's main priority, and the World of Darkness team was more of a side project to the company. So while Dust 514 was released at the start of that year, things at White Wolf were moving at a slower pace than anyone expected. After the convention was over, it was radio silence. The community was left alone with their thoughts, still wondering when the game will come out. Will it be free to play or have a subscription? Will it have traditional MMO combat? Or will it be mainly social, like an edgy version of Second Life? While the idea of making the World of Darkness MMO a game that can expand beyond the screen itself and wanting it to create stories like the ones told in EVE Online, CCP has failed to give this product the time and attention it deserves. The potential was astounding. This could have been a masterpiece in gaming, but arguments on the cost, both time and monetary, turned the entire studio into this chaotic mess, which hampered productivity to a near halt. Even though the foundations of this game were being set in and the core of its gameplay was coming together, it was made abundantly clear that the game was announced way too early. The team at White Wolf was building this entire MMO from the ground up while still having to deal with absolutely massive layoffs that were brought onto them due to no fault of their own. You could blame it on poor planning, you could blame it on corporate greed and microtransactions, hell, you could even blame it on rage culture. But on April 14th of 2014, World of Darkness Online was cancelled. This was stated in a public announcement where they apologized to the employees and to the fans while also admitting that their efforts consistently fell short. The remaining workforce allocated for World of Darkness Online was then dissolved and spread across different projects within the company. All that remains of the MMO are a few screenshots and a little gameplay footage that has somehow surfaced recently. Now, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but there are new games to be made within the World of Darkness universe. In 2015, White Wolf was bought out by Paradox Interactive with full intention to make multiple digital titles, turning White Wolf into a self-operating subsidiary. Now, barring any catastrophic outcry against Paradox Interactive, there is a strong possibility you will be able to play a new World of Darkness game eventually. The latest news I can give you is that in 2017, White Wolf partnered with Studio Cyanide and Focus Home Interactive for a video game adaptation of Werewolf the Apocalypse. Also, the Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is currently being developed, which could finally give a small bit of closure to the fanbase. Even though World of Darkness Online was never able to become a finished product, the tabletop games involving this universe continue to be some of the best available, maintaining a devoted fanbase over the last 30 years. Oh yeah, and the lawsuit pertaining to Underworld the movie was settled outside of court. But as always, I want to know what you think. Could this have been avoided, or did White Wolf need CCP to make this MMO happen? Do you want a World of Darkness video game, or would you prefer to just keep the game on pen and paper? Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoy me talking about various topics in gaming such as this one, then hit that red rectangle. There's also the Daily Quest Discord where we just sit around and get nothing accomplished, so feel free to stop by. There's a link in the description of every video, but most importantly, have a wonderful day. Peace out.